Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters, and welcome to Readings with Regina. I am so happy to be with you today, as always. Now, I want to give a big shout out to all of my subscribers. Thank you so very much for being with me, for hanging with me, and loving your history, I hope. Loving being read to, I hope. And spreading the word. That is very, very, very important. And I'm even going to tell you why it's so important. Mm. Man, I just looked at a cabinet meeting. I'm not going to go into it, with one of the highest politicians of the land, our president, and he was meeting with African leaders, and it was very clear that President Trump did not know African American history. But many of you might say, well, he don't know a lot of things. Oh, fine, fine. But I just want to remind you how important it is to know your history. Okay? And this is why Readings with Regina was created, because I wanted to create a vehicle where I could share with you, especially those of you of African descent or obvious African descent, your African American literary history. Very, very important. We are foundational Black people. We are African American people. We are Black people. We are all that. And I feel that I am all that. And it is just imperative that you know your history. And very often, you will not get a true understanding of Black history in mainstream schools, which most of our children go to. This is why, indeed, it is imperative that you teach your children outside of the schools. You must do that. It's your duty to do that. Understand how the African got to be in the Americas. Understand that. Always go back to that. Okay? We didn't come here voluntarily. Now, people might come here voluntarily now, okay? But centuries ago, we were kidnapped and transported to this country. Do you understand? And we were transported to this country to labor for free. For free. So the African then became what was called the Negro with a small n. And I'm sure you know that word that is a synonym to Negro, which I won't say. But if it's in the book, I'm going to read it. All right. So I just wanted you to know that. And oh, beloved, I'm just so happy to be with you. And I want to get down with it right now because I have a lot to say. Oh, I have a comment. Let me pull that up. See who's here. Uh-oh. Forever, ever. Girl, where you been? You know I'm loving it when you here. Absolutely. I am so glad to see you. Thank you. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start with Dessa Rose. Okay, that's the book that we're reading by Shirley Ann Williams. And just to remind you, this is a novel. However, this novel is based upon a true incident in history where a very pregnant Dessa was able to get out of her chains. She was on a coffle. This is a coffle. She was able to get out of her chains and lead a revolt among the brothers and sisters that were being transported from one part of America to another where they were going to be sold into slavery. This is very important. Now, the other historical incident is that there was a white female abolitionist who helped runaway slaves. So what Shirley Ann Williams, the writer of Dessa Rose, did, what she did was to pull those two historical incidences together. And she allowed her imagination, based upon a historical incident or two, to create characters. So we get Dessa Rose, and we're going to get Miss Rueful. You're going to meet her today. Miss Rueful, although her enslaved people called her Miss Ruin. But you're going to meet her today along with Dessa. Okay, so here we go. Let me, oh, look what she said. Oh, cute, cute. And I understand. And forever, ever, that's why I'm glad you're here now. Because I know a lot of people at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Yes, you're working. And you have to work because you live in a capitalistic country. You dig? I mean, if you don't work, you're not going to have anything. All right? And we've already talked about how the enslavement of Black people created capitalism in America. Now, okay, so I'm going to get right to the work here because I got a lot to say. And, forever, ever, I'm glad you're here too because you're a sister, you're a female, right? And I'm going to be talking today about some key female behaviors, all right? For example, Dessa Rose is quite pregnant with Kaine's baby. Y'all know her lover, her husband, Kaine, the music man. Anyway, she's about to give birth. She's on horseback. Boom. She does give birth. And when I say I'm going to be talking a lot about women, I mean that. Why do I mean that? Because who else can give birth? A man can't give birth. Do you understand that? So whoever sent us here had a special mission for the woman. All right, so here we go. Dessa Rose. The white woman's mouth was like an open wound across the milky paleness of her face. She sat, one shoulder bare, a child against her breast. Got enough? She tickled the baby under the chin and raised it to her shoulder, patting its back and murmuring. The baby was a big year-old maybe or more, with plump white arms and legs, wisps of light-colored hair on its smooth white head. The child burped loudly and grinned. The white woman laughed. Well, I guess you did get your fill. Dessa closed her eyes. Her lashes clotted wetly against her cheeks. Her stomach was flat, the muscles flaccid, her breast swollen and tender, felt on fire. Yes. Lord, where my baby? Where my baby at? Where's my child? She could feel the sodden rag between her thighs, sticky with blood. Where my child? She didn't know she had spoken aloud until she heard the gasp, right here, and opened her eyes. The white woman, the shoulders still bare, the curly black head and brown face of a new baby nestled at her breast, faced her now. See? No! The scream rushed out of her on an explosion of breath. She saw the glass-colored eyes buck before her own squeezed tight. The covers weighed her arms and legs. Some voice screamed, Annabelle! Annabelle! Get Ada! Get Ada! She's starting up again. Hands herself, crying weakly, a cool cloth on her forehead and something at her breast. See? See? He know his mama. See? He just want to eat. Dessa looked down. The brown baby was in her arms, his dark eyes staring up at her unwinkingly. She touched a tiny fist. It opened to grasp her finger. She looked up. She had never seen the tall, brown-skinned woman before. Let me fix them pillows so you can nurse more better. The woman bent over Dessa, her hands moving deftly. Dessa lay quietly but warily. There now. You turn just a little on your side and you both be more comfortable. Well, go on. Put the nipple in his mouth. Dessa looked down quickly, then up at the woman's smiling face. She did as she was told, gingerly, touching her breast and awkwardly guiding it toward the baby's mouth. The nipple touched his cheek, and he turned his head toward it, his mouth opening to grasp and clamping tightly around it. all in one moment. A sharp pain shot through Dessa's breast at the first tug, and she gasped. Yes, got to get used to that, the woman said conversationally. Pain going to get worse before it get better. That is, if you ain't dried up, it's a mercy if you not. Way you been carrying on, she laughed. Attacking white folks and scraping all across the country and the dead of night, laughing again and shaking her head. I told her, don't be coming in here, lest one of us is with her. But you think Miss Ruin going to listen at me? Nah. At least she could understand these words, even if they still made no sense to her. Who was this woman? Where was Harker? She sent the boy at him. He be here directly. You go on see about that baby. He getting some, huh? Yes, she asked, peeking over the nursing baby. It be all right now. Every pull of the baby's lips sent a thrill of pain through Dessa's breast. She looked up at the woman and smiled before she closed her eyes. Now let me listen. Man, when I first read that, I laughed and laughed and laughed. Why? Because nobody had prepared me for breastfeeding either. And I just want to let you young sisters know who are going to have your babies. First of all, you must breastfeed. Breastfeed. Your body was made to give breast milk. Now, I know brothers and some other gentlemen, might think your breasts are for other things. But whoever sent us here, your breasts are to feed the children that you bring to this planet. Understand that? Know that? Recognize that. Now, I even want to say to you this. The first time that you breastfeed, it's a monster. I mean, I was like, whoa. I was shocked because I wasn't prepared. But as the baby suckles at your breast, it gets easier and easier. But that first couple times, you're going to be like, oh my Lord, maybe I should just go ahead and buy some milk and leave this alone. But I do, absolutely. I do want to encourage you and other women that you might know who are about to give birth, breastfeed. Do breastfeed. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Don't be trusting this country with your food. You don't know what they put in formulas for babies, especially for black babies. I've read reports. I'm not going into that. But understand that this is a country that is built on capitalism. And capitalism does not love people. It does not. Capitalism is very often a war machine. You dig? Just look carefully at your history. Look carefully at what it is the United States sells to other countries. All right, brothers and sisters? Very key. Understand what time you're living in and understand the foundation of this country and know your history so that you could plan for a very good future for yourself and other people who need your skills and need your help. All right. And I say this, I'm getting ready to read Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I'm saying all this to you too. Why? Because I have noticed over the decades or two that there's all these workshops on the black man can't get along with the black woman and the black woman don't need no man and the black, what is this? What is this except the breaking up of the black family? Okay? That's what it is. So don't fall for that, people. Use your head. Be unified. Okay? Create yourself into whatever kind of sister girl you want to be. Have high moral values. Select men that are good for you. Okay? But don't fall into that trap of, well, I could do this alone. And a baby needs a mother and a father. I'm going to say this again. A baby needs a mother and a father. All right. So just keep that in mind. Okay, now I'm going to read from Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, but she calls herself Linda Brent in this book. Now, I've already told you that her family was just sold, okay? Right. And she's now sold to a Dr. Flint and his wife. And I've already told you that his wife, like a lot of Southern women, she just had no energy and she needed people, or no, she needed her slaves to do every kind of household duty for her. But she was also very cruel. And we're going to talk about that after I read from Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Now, she might have been, I'm going to faint, but she could stand to look at a black woman be whipped. Okay, she wasn't that non-energetic. All right. And the man that she was married to, Dr. Flint, he was equally cruel. Okay. If his dinner wasn't made just right, he would stuff it down the cook's throat. All of it, choking her. Just mean. Now, I want you to be thinking about what I'm saying, because I also want to ask you some questions about human behavior, about enslaver behavior and enslaved behavior after I read this section of Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl that was written between 1857 and 58. Here we go. The Flints had a pet dog that was a nuisance in the house. The cook was ordered to make some Indian mush for him. I have no idea what Indian mush is, but notice, Indian. Now remember now, these people have already, all of the soldiers here, they done eradicated the red nations, but there was an Indian mush. The dog refused to eat the mush, and when his head was held over it, the froth flowed from his mouth into the basin. He died a few minutes later. When Dr. Flint came in, he said the mush had not been well cooked, and that was the reason the animal would not eat it. He sent for the cook and compelled her to eat it. He thought that the woman's stomach was stronger than the dog's, but her sufferings afterwards proved he was mistaken. This poor woman endured many cruelties from her master and mistress. Sometimes she was locked up away from her nursing baby. Lord have mercy. That means that the baby starved. For a whole day and night. When I had been in the family a few weeks, one of the plantation slaves was brought to town by order of his master. It was near night when he arrived, and Dr. Flint ordered him to be taken to the workhouse and tied up to the joist so that his feet would just escape the ground. In that situation, he was to wait till the doctor had taken his tea. I shall never forget that night. Never before in my life had I heard hundreds of blows fall in succession on a human being. His piteous groans and his, oh, pray don't, master, don't, rang in my ear for months afterwards. There were many conjectures as to the cause of this terrible punishment. Some said master accused him of stealing corn. Others said the slave had quarreled with his wife in presence of the overseer and had accused his master of being the father of her child. They were both black, and the child was very fair. I went into the workhouse next morning and saw the cowhide still wet with blood and the boards all covered with gore. The poor man lived and continued to quarrel with his wife. A few months afterwards, Dr. Flint handed them both over to a slave trader. The guilty man put their value into his pocket. I'm going to read that again because I wrote about this in my book on Malcolm X and the Poetics of Hakeem Adabuti. Listen to this phrase. The guilty man put their value into his pocket. The guilty man put the enslaved man's value into his pocket. So what that slogan means is that enslaved people will turn into money. We were literally turned into money. You enslaved, use money, Jack. That's what you are. You're not a person. You is money. I'm going to read it again. The guilty man, Dr. Flint, put their value, the two enslaved people, into his pocket. Lord have mercy. And had the satisfaction of knowing that they were out of sight and hearing. When the mother was delivered into the trader's hands, she said, "You promised to treat me well." To which he replied, "You have let your tongue run too far, damn you." She had forgotten that it was a crime for a slave to tell who was the father of her child. I had no idea that. From others than the master's persecution also comes in such cases. I once saw a young slave girl dying soon after the birth of a child, nearly white. In her agony, she cried out, "Oh Lord, come and take me." Her mistress stood by and mocked at her like an incarnate fiend. "You suffer, do you?" she exclaimed. "I'm glad of it. You deserve it all and more too." The girl's mother said, "The baby's dead. Thank God. And I hope my poor child will soon be in heaven too." Now, this is what I wanted to talk about before I just jump into the third book, which I may or may not have time to read. Now, I've read to you The Cruelty of Dr. Flint and his wife. I've read that to you. Now, my brothers and sisters, I want you to think. I want you to take a moment to think. What kind of behaviors are being revealed in the enslavers' personalities, the men and the women? What kind of behaviors? And I really don't want to answer these kinds of questions because I want you to think about the answers. And if you are sharing these videos, which I really hope you are, with other people your age or younger or even older, I want you all to think about these things. See, if I had you all in a university classroom, we would have a quiz on this. You would have to tell me your impressions. But this is a YouTube video, but I still want you to tell me your impressions. Yes, I do. And those of you who are with me now, I'd like you to make a comment. If you don't want to make a comment about this now, do make a comment about this later. Because I don't just want this information to be, tangentially in your brain. I want it to be pierced inside of your brain because these are your ancestors. And this is what has happened to them. And science today, because I read a lot of science too, even tells you that you are connected to your ancestors. It's not just an African belief. We certainly believed it. So did the Native Americans believed it. But even white folks in their Western science have shown that attributes, qualities of our ancestors still live in us today. Some of the trauma that we even feel today has to do with what went down back then. Okay, here we go, here, Richard. This is what absolutely. And look at this. Look at this, Richard. This kind of behavior is legalized. That is so important. It is, in other words, it's cultural. It is okay. If your neighbor carries on like that, right on, right on. Hey, it's okay. Yeah, all they did was beat a black man. All they did was beat a Negro with a little N. A Negro's not a person. You could put a Negro in your pocket. You could put a Negro in your pocket. I shouldn't say I love that saying, but I was struck years ago when I first read this. I said, put it in your pocket. You're going to put a human being in your pocket. It was a saying. It was a slang. Negro people were being sold back and forth so much that they were put in the white man and the white woman's pocket. Hello. You know how you might have some dollar bills, a couple quarters or whatever in your pocket? Well, back then, A human being, the value of a human being was put in your pocket. Let me see this other. Morbid fascination for transgress. Yes, 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 yes. And what's worse, Richard, if there could possibly be a worse, it is validated. This kind of behavior is validated by the culture. It is validated by the legal system. None of this is in the Declaration. Absolutely, is in the Declaration of Independence. None of this is in there. The Constitution, none of that. In fact, enslaved people were left out of the Declaration of Independence. It's a wonderful document. You should check it out. You really should. But it was for white people. And what it did, it hid this kind of behavior. This is why it is imperative that you learn your Black literary history. Only you can learn that history. And once you do, you share it with your friends. Start a book club. Start any kind of an educational, comfortable circle where these things can be discussed. Because this is your life. The Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl is a true book. In fact, scholars who didn't want to accept this, white scholars, they went and looked up all the references that Linda Brent gives in this book and found them. This is not a novel. This is a true history. Just like the book, let me see if I can find it. Clotel, written by William Wells Brown. Clotel was one of Thomas Jefferson's daughter. You know, one of the writers of the Declaration. Yes, he had many daughters. Okay? But you're not going to read about that when you read about him, unless you go to certain sources. All right? So again, I can't, I will say this repeatedly. Repeatedly. Let me see. Same each body. Let me put this up. Parallel. Yes. Yes. Right. Still today, the altar is set. Yes, it is. Yes. This is also why I go back into history. And as I continue with this series, I'm going to go into other historical moments in time, even in ancient times. That's important too. But I wanted to start with Black people in the Americas, okay? Foundational Black Americans, African Americans, Black people. That is key. So I wanted to start here, all right? But our history is so rich. And let me just say this. I'm gonna get a little back on the metaphysical plane for a minute, because this is important too, especially since I'm talking about women. You women that are listening to me, and you brothers, y'all could just eavesdrop. Understand that you're the only species who bleed without making war. Black women bleed, white women bleed, women bleed without fighting. Women have a special relationship with the moon. Understand that? Oh, yes, we do. What do you think the lunar cycle is about? What do you think how the ocean waves move during a particular lunar cycle in the manner in which they do? What do you think it means when a woman bleeds and then when she is impregnated, the flow stops while all of her nutritions, all of her energy and all of her thoughts go to that child. Hello. Hello. So I want you to always, you see this banner, consider how and why you were sent to earth. Do not just live your life like it's, well, I'm going to go to work. And now you got to go to work. I understand that. But don't let that limit you. You're much bigger than whatever job you have. In fact, one of the things you should do while you're on earth is create your own way of living. Do try to do that, because America is not a country that has loved Black people. So it is up to us to unify, love ourselves, and bring beauty, because we already do through our culture. You bring beauty onto the earth. We've always been into music. We've always been into playing instruments. We've always been into dance. Yes, that is something that is entertaining and it's wonderful. It is wonderful. And you could see Black talent in those things. But I want you intellectually strong. I want you to know this country inside out so that you could change it, because it needs to be changed. All you got to do is look at all the wars that your country is in right now and has been in. Oh, brothers and sisters, it is time for me to go. But it has been a joy to be with you. Let me see what up. Oh yeah, let me put this up. Do visit my website, apanthersister.com. Check out my work. Okay, I'm getting ready to come out with another book. I'm very excited about that. But in any event, don't just look at these videos. Share them. Share them with young people that you know. Quiz the young people that you know, just like I offered the questions to you today. Well, my loves, I'm going to sign off. It has been marvelous, and know that you are loved dearly. Bye now.